Again, we have another challenging case study. It's actually the reverse of an earlier case study where we talked about going from a fixed rate, a low fixed rate product to a lower fixed rate ARM. Now we're going to look at going from a low cost ARM to a higher interest rate fixed. So we have a situation where we're going to set this up as a refi. Our title is refi from ARM to fix. We're going to leave our client information generic here. So we need to review these mortgage details, and in this case we have a property value of $600,000. It's a primary residence. There's a 7-year fixed ARM with a big bank. They owe $315,000. They started this in 7 of 2010 at 3.75%. They currently owe $300,000. Their current payment is $1,458. Don't need to worry about property taxes here because we're just comparing a refinance, so these are going to be the same. And again, I'm just trying to keep these as simple as I possibly can from a number standpoint, but I do need to put in my ARM details. This is the powerful part of this simulation. We know it's a 3.75. We know that being that it is a 7-year product, we have 84 months, so we're actually going to put this, so in 85 months, this product can start adjusting after the start rate. Now it's going to calculate how far we are into this based on the start date here is a 212.25, so it's a 225 adjustment, 3% margin over the current index, and we're going to use a worst case scenario. So what that's going to do is that's going to do all the math for us to simulate what that 7-year ARM is going to do going forward when we compare it to alternatives. The client wants to know if refinancing makes sense compared to a 30-year fix at a higher rate based on their goal of staying in the house through retirement and beyond. So they're going to be there a longer time period. But again, this is where these cases become challenging. So they have a 30-year fixed now that we're thinking about going to, but they're going to be in the house for a long period of time. So they know their ARM has only got 4 more years before it starts to adjust. But they were thinking about making extra payments just to pay the house off in 15 years. So you can see how it's really simple, but it's so complicated in that you've got a 7-year ARM that's adjusting. You've got a client that you're trying to talk about getting into a fixed rate at a lower interest rate, and they're wondering if they can make extra payments and just pay it off in 15 years. And that's part of the justification for not wanting to get out of a 7-year ARM. It may start adjusting in 4 more years, but we're only going to be there for maybe another 10 years before we pay that thing off, so it doesn't really matter. This is where you need to be able to simulate this and give them something. So really the question is, should they keep the ARM they have now, 7-year ARM that has 4 years remaining, and just make larger payments on it to try to pay off in 15 years, or should they get a new 15-year mortgage? So how would I answer that question? Can we, and how would we go about answering that question? Well, the first thing we do is we look at their current mortgage with Big Bank. They owe $300,000. They're currently paying 3.75. They're currently paying $1,458, and they currently have 330 months to go on that particular loan. We're going to compare it to a 15-year fixed. We can compare it to multiple products. I can compare it to 15, a 30, and a new 7. But again, I like to start off simple and see if I can answer the question in the simplest terms possible. And if I need to go and add other products, I can always do that. So I know their goal is to pay off in 15 years. So why not compare the 7-year ARM they have today that they like to pay off in 15 years with a new 15-year mortgage that they know would be paid off in 15 years when they retire. I go ahead and put in my loan amount at $305 to build in something for closing costs, and I look at my current 15-year rate today, which is around 3%. So that's really easy to set up. If I was going to compare this to a 30 as well, it would just be as simple as expanding this, clicking duplicate. That brings everything down that's the same. I just changed my product to a 30-year fixed and change this up here to a 30-year fixed, and I could go about comparing this, and I'll come back to that in just a second. So I want to be consistent in how I explain things because it makes it easier for me. I know how I'm going to go about this, and I'm going to answer first their questions around closing costs. If you keep the 7-year ARM and do nothing, you'll have no out-of-pocket closing cost. If you go with the 15-year fixed, You're gonna have about $37.25 in closing costs, but I'm financing that in for you. I'm bumping your mortgage just a little bit to get started to alleviate any cash at closing concerns that you might have. If they want to pay cash at closing, they want to pay this out of pocket, no problem. I just take this up here to $300,000. I don't have to worry about anything below because what just happened is this payment recalculated, the wealth impact, everything below just recalculated for me in a second. So if they say I'd rather pay this out of pocket, no worries. We got 300. We're going to a new 300. You're going to need to bring $37.25 to closing. Are you okay with that? Yes, I am. Great. Now let's look at the payment difference. You're currently paying on a 7-year ARM $1,459. We do know that that's going to increase in about 4 years, and we know on the 15-year fixed, your payment right now would be $2,072, which means you're going to be paying an extra $613 a month out of pocket difference for at least the next 4 years. But when that ARM starts going up, and most likely it will go up in 4 years, that gap is going to be much smaller. But that said, can you really answer their question of which is better? We can always answer the cash flow, and that's so important, and we can answer their closing costs, but how do we answer the wealth impact? And we can do that so easily with our software, because what we're going to now come in here and do is say, well, again, the best way to compare wealth, I could compare minimum payment if I wanted to and see what that looks like. But this is going to automatically adjust everything for us and keep everything at a fixed minimum, which right now the new mortgage would be $2,071.74. So the software is intuitive in that it's saying your new payment, if you got a 15-year fixed, is $2,072, and we know that's going to be fixed for the next 15 years. And I know if I look down below that the months to debt free is 180 months. So I know I can guarantee you at $2,071.74 a month, you're debt free in 180 months. If you stayed with your 7-year ARM, how would things work out for you? Well, let's assume, because I know this is my fixed guarantee here, and that's why we use the fixed to be the highest number, the fixed number. We're going to assume that you keep your 7-year ARM and you pay the same payment, $2,071.74 on that going forward. I want to take my time frame out 15 years. I'm going to make my appreciation 0 because it's simple, and I'm going to make my after-tax savings rate 0 again to make it simple. And look at the beauty of how we can explain to this client that if they keep their 7-year ARM, pay $2,071.74 a month going forward, they'll be debt-free in 281 months. In 15 years, their mortgage balance right here is still $147,414 based on the caps and the adjustments that 7-year ARM could make. On a 15-year fixed, the mortgage balance at the end of 15 years is 0, and again, we're at 180 months and they're debt-free. So the question for you is really one of, if your goal is to be debt-free in 15 years, and I told you could pay $2,071.74 a month and be guaranteed that by retirement, how does that feel for you compared to knowing that in your 7-year ARM, even though your current payment is less, that $2,071.74 that you pay right now for the next 4 years, that extra payment is going to go right to principal. But as that starts to adjust on those 7-year caps, it's going to eat into this such that 15 years from now, you still owe $147,414. I could even go through and play around and see what would happen if I paid $3,000 a month. At $3,000 a month, I would be debt-free in 131 months, but I would have, at the same payment, be debt-free in 116 months here. How about $2,500 a month? Wow, $2,500 gives me exactly 15 years. But if I just paid $2,500 a month on my new 15, I would have been debt-free in 143 months. And again, look at, I got one number here to talk about, $87,169 is my net savings. There's no way you can do this kind of comprehensive analysis for a client that I'm aware of any other way. And there's just no question that a client can come up with that we can't simulate going through this type of a scenario. My recommended method is to simply say whatever the highest payment you could make, if you can make this payment here, you can make it on any of your products. So fix it at that amount. That baseline's thing's the same. So you can see I'm going to spend over 15 years $372 or $372. I'm spending the same amount. My question is, what makes the most progress for me towards my goals? Clearly, the 372,913 spent on the 15-year fixed is a better alternative. If I wanted to compare the 30 as well, I would just expand the 30. I would put in the 30, maybe that's 3.5 right now. Bring that down, and you notice everything's already calculated for me. So here, let's just go ahead and match these up. I'll make this 300. So my closing cost is the same. My payment's going to be lower than my current 7-year ARM. That sounds great, but that still didn't help me with my question of what's the best scenario for me over the next 15 years. And I can see here 281, 180, 189. So the 30 at 3.5 adds 9 months to my time before I'm able to pay that off. Now, if I'm going to go present this, I wouldn't present the 30 because I know it's just not going to make sense. But let's just leave it in there so I can give them sort of a comparison of the two. We maybe do the cover, the intro. Maybe we'll go with a 2-page plan here in the AM table, and I preview the presentation. So my introduction and my notes are going to be here. My summary, this is current, 15 and 30. Here's what I recommend. The impact over 15 years for you is positive 143 versus positive 126. You can't go wrong with either one of these things. If you feel more comfortable having a lower minimum monthly payment of $13.47 and you have the option to make the assumed payment of $20.72, you can do that. This builds the discipline in for you. This is going to require that you make the extra payment each month. Still though, we're taking your 59% of your payment right now is going to interest. We're going to drop that to 19.5 with the 24%. You can see your break even here is 21 months versus 51 months for a break even. You got a longer break even here. Why is that? Because currently this ARM is at a lower interest rate, so it's going to take a while for you to really see those benefits kick in. Again, all that's calculated for you here, so it's very easy to explain. But if your long-term goal is to be debt-free in 15 years, both of these are going to put you much closer to that than the unknowns of the 17 or the unknowns of the 7-year ARM. I can visually see here's that 15-year fixed going to zero. The current liabilities jumping up at the end of that 7 years and holding out at that worst case, and then here's our 30-year staying down here. Both of the wealth impact lines stay well above, and the AM tables can bear out the sort of the truth of the math, showing when this thing is paid off in exactly 15 years. So again, if it's a difficult question or a simple question, either way, we're going to be able to answer it using the Bar Smart solution.